All right, everyone, we start off today talking about how, technically speaking, Donald Trump is still the leader, the de facto leader of the Republican Party. There are other sort of power polls emerging, but they're having some problems. First and foremost, there will be links in a pinned comment in this video if you're watching on YouTube to other video hosting sites that I use, Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, and Dailymotion, for the purposes of actually being able to get my material out there, because YouTube now algorithmically demotes every independent commentator that touches on politics and current events. In some cases, it's not even, by the way, on purpose or targeted. It's just because of the way they've arranged their algorithms. It's rather sad, considering what YouTube used to be and what it could be, as opposed to, unfortunately, the form that it's currently in. We'll hope that that changes. I would like to point out, when we look at the Republican Party today, some people, the legacy media is interpreting it as the Republicans are fractured and it's like they're dying off and shit. We've literally seen the same thing in the Democratic Party. What happened is you had the core of the far left, like the Gang of Four, Elon Omar, AOC types, fighting with the neo-libs establishment. They've sort of congealed back together some. But they have deep disagreements about policy, partially because they're trying to pander to fan bases that are demographically totally different. There's a big difference between a heavily urban constituency and maybe like a blue dog Dem thing like a Joe Manchin in the Senate. And so they have different priorities, and sometimes even if you have control of a legislative body, it can stop you from passing what you want to do. In some cases, it leads to you getting what you want even though you're on the minority side as well. The problem is there are some Democrats and Republicans that don't work well with others. They don't quite understand geopolitics in the national sense. Cue Bernie Sanders, who never won an election that didn't involve a far-left echo chamber constituency. But link in the description, Burr got censored for voting for impeachment, number one, and now there's a petition to recall Mitt Romney. He's got over 100,000 signatures, I think, already. Now, will he get recalled? Probably not. He does have considerable clout in his state. Romney is a major figure within the Republican Party. But the party leader's Trump. I'm scratching my head to people who don't believe this. Who else could possibly be leading the GOP at the moment? When we look at the actions, especially at the state level, when we look at the state legislatures, the governors and so forth, most of them align with Trump. Trump really is the face of the more traditional Republican Party ethos of the last half century, which is state-level populistic style politics, as opposed to the post-Reagan globalist platform of, well, it doesn't really care, we want 51% of you to vote for us and then we're selling shit to China. That's basically what the GOP has degraded into over time, to the point where it seemed no longer to care about the working and middle classers that largely comprised healthy proportions of the party. That's why Trump won in the first place. That's why he totally didn't win, by the way, in the last election, honk honk. He's the leader of the party. But it's funny because the leader of the GOP, at least again in that de facto sense, has been largely silenced on mainline tech, and apparently he's still trying to figure out what the fuck he's going to do with regards to communicating with people. He's still, I mean, there was a pro-Trump rally the other day in Florida. He drives with a fucking 500, maybe 1,000 people there, and he's waving to them and stuff. He's acting like he's still president. And it's sort of a successful optical campaign, because the alternative on the other so-called side is a dude who never leaves the White House for the most part. He just sits there, and once in a while he does a photo op at the little kid's desk that he has to use because he poops his pants all day, and he signs a couple of executive orders. So far, the Biden presidency has literally been the media not talking about anything that he's fucking doing other than his socks, ice cream, he likes dogs. They had another fluff piece the other day. Newsweek had another fluff piece the other day, an even more embarrassing one. You can look that up. You may see this all the fucking time. This is the 4th or 5th time that they've covered his ass when he does stupid shit by fixating on something that's not even, has nothing to do with politics. And they like it, and there are people that lap it up, and they don't seem to understand why a 180 was done by the legacy media, by the way as well. They seem to think it's, well, our president's no longer bad, therefore they're not attacking him as much. No, it's more like they're no longer attacking him as much because they don't want you to believe that he's bad. Nothing Joe Biden has done so far is helpful to the country. Donald Trump is sitting there waiting in the wings. Again, I don't know that after 4 more years of waiting, he'll still be in the age category that generally you would ascribe to someone who makes a successful presidential run. So far, the only one who managed to do that was Joe Biden, despite the fact that, the enthusiasm gap was 18 points, I believe. Despite that, though, he managed to do it. But Donald Trump, come on, when you're pushing 80 years old, eventually you've got some problems. I think the lineup behind Trump, DeSantis is a rising star. Rand Paul and Ted Cruz are sort of perennially there. You've got the anti-Trump, like the globalist neocon Republican, which is Mitt Romney, basically, and then those are the other major names within the party. Hawley, to an extent, as well. He's been lambasted for some reason more than like Ted Cruz and people like that. There is no other party leader. That the RNC is not. Can you even name the leader of the RNC right now? I don't think most people could. The party doesn't really have a solid leadership core because you have an enormous proportion of the party aligned behind, if not Trump as a person, at least Trump as a general plethora of policies. They've aligned behind populism. They've totally rejected globalism. The problem is that the Republican Party can't really lead itself unless it gives in to them. And then what they're worried about is they're worried about all the neocon corporatists who they've been dealing with favors for years and years, throwing them under the bus. I would say just peel the Band-Aid off, let them do that, get thrown under the bus for an election or two, and take your lumps in hopes of making a better party. But here's the problem in politics, and we see this on the left and on the right, is a lot of times people are so fixated on winning the battle, they're not thinking strategically for the longer-term campaign. This has been the biggest problem for the Democrats until fairly recently. They've get their honkler election, and now they're just sort of sitting there dicking around, overstretching their mandate just as predicted. The Republicans refused to congeal behind Trump and defend him, and those that didn't are now being roundly punished. Again, on that lower level, the people as a populist whole, and the state legislatures and governors that are Republican are almost lock, stock, and barrel on Trump's side. He's also got a proportion of the Senate and the House. He's appointed 3 people to SCOTUS. He's basically like a sub-president right now. There are Republicans who don't want to admit it. It's more like they recognize it, but they don't want the public to realize the situation. They don't want it to dawn on people, oh yeah, by the way, what other prominent Republican could be leading things right now? Essentially, they should be congealing behind Trump and continuing to push his policies. And again, he's the front runner for 2024 for the Republicans if he chooses to run. He's far out ahead of anyone. I think DeSantis and Cruz are second and third. I would prefer DeSantis over Ted Cruz, just saying. But yeah, it's kind of funny to see the current political situation. There are people who still think that Trump has been drumped. He's down and out, and strongman Joe Biden has knocked him on the floor. Well, we'll see. That's about all. Peace out.